Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Owari, there lived two sisters, Chisholm and Amora. Chisholm was the elder, quiet and devoted, always praying in churches, always fasting for blessings she never seemed to receive. Amora, on the other hand, was the light of every room she entered. She was brilliant, charming, and favored by everyone who met her. Even their mother often compared the two, saying, "Amora is the blessed one." Those words cut Chisholm deeply. Chisholm wanted what her sister had. She prayed for a husband, but the man she once loved chose Amora instead. She prayed for a good job, but it was Amora who got the position Chisholm fasted months for. With every answered prayer for her sister, Chisholm's faith grew weaker. And with every unanswered prayer for herself, something dark began to grow inside her heart. One evening, after yet another family gathering where her mother showered Amora with praise, Chisholm reached her breaking point. She did not go home to cry. She did not kneel to pray. Instead, she followed the whispers of neighbors about a forest priest who could change destinies. They said he never asked questions, and he never failed. The path was narrow, filled with shadows. Chisholm carried only bitterness in her heart and her sister's wedding ring in her hand. When she arrived, the priest was waiting as if he knew she was coming. His eyes were cold. His voice was heavy. "If you want her life, you must give up your soul," he said. He took the ring, ground it into ash, wrapped it in black cloth, and tied it with red thread. Chisholm's lips trembled, but she whispered yes. From that moment, a deal was sealed. If you believe jealousy destroys more than poverty, watch to the end. And if you are bold enough, subscribe, because stories like this will remind you, never compete with your own blood. That week, Amora's home grew restless. Her husband, Obinna, suddenly lost his banking job. His bosses accused him of mistakes he never made. At night, their twin boys began convulsing at midnight, screaming of crawling shadows no one else could see. Amora could not sleep. She complained of snakes slithering into her ears, hissing words she could not understand. The family ran from hospital to hospital, but every doctor shook his head. "There is nothing medically wrong," they said. Neighbors began to whisper. Elders in the compound said it was spiritual. Only Chisholm knew the truth. She sat quietly in family meetings, hiding her smile, because the very life she prayed for was now crumbling before her eyes. One rainy night, Amora collapsed on the kitchen floor. The children screamed until neighbors rushed in. She was rushed to the hospital, but the doctors only whispered, "We don't know what's wrong with her." She breathed her last before dawn. Everyone said she died peacefully. But Chisholm, who stood in the corner, saw her sister's final look. Amora's eyes had searched the room, found Chisholm, and locked on her with a faint smile. That smile pierced deeper than a blade. It was as if Amora knew everything. From that night, Chisholm could no longer sleep. Every midnight, she heard her name whispered in the dark. Chisholm. Chisholm. But she ignored it, because soon after the burial, Obinna came to her with swollen eyes and heavy grief. He needed comfort. And she was ready. Tradition said a widow must be cared for, but Obinna was a man broken beyond repair. Chisholm visited daily, cooking, washing, and soothing his children. Neighbors praised her loyalty. "See how she takes care of her late sister's family," they said. Slowly, Obinna began to lean on her. Slowly, his tears turned into touches. And within a year, Chisholm married the very man who once rejected her. At first, it felt like victory. The home was hers. The children called her Mama. The neighbors respected her. But the whispers never stopped. Every night, between sleep and waking, she heard her name. Chisholm. Sometimes it was a cry. Sometimes it was laughter. Sometimes, it was a warning. Still, she told herself, "This is the life I deserve. This is the life I fought for." At first, Chisholm thought she had one. She walked in Amora's house as the new wife, carrying her head high. Obinna's love was heavy with grief. At night, he still whispered Amora's name in his sleep. Chisholm lay beside him, eyes wide open, listening with jealousy burning through her chest. The children too behaved strangely. Sometimes they ran to her arms, but other times they pulled away and cried, "You're not our mother." Once, one of the twin woke screaming, pointing to the corner of the room, "Mama is there. Mama is standing there." Chisholm's body turned cold, but she scolded the boy harshly. "Don't speak such nonsense again." Deep down, she knew the child was not lying. One evening, while folding laundry, Chisholm found something she thought was gone forever. Inside Obinna's drawer lay the wedding ring she had stolen for the ritual, the same ring she had seen ground into ash by the forest priest. Yet here it was, gleaming as if brand new. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She dropped it immediately, but the ring rolled across the floor and stopped at her feet. That night, she dreamed of Amora wearing the ring, standing at the edge of the bed, her eyes glowing faintly. Chisholm, the ghostly figure whispered, "You gave me to the spirits, but they have not finished with you." Chisholm woke sweating, clutching her chest. But when she looked beside her, the ring was there again on the pillow, glowing faintly in the dark. Terrified, Chisholm returned to the forest priest. He stared at her without surprise, as if he had been waiting. "You have taken her life, yes. But spirits are not fools. What is borrowed must be repaid. And the debt will come from your bloodline." Chisholm's voice cracked as she begged, "What do I do now?" The priest shook his head. "There is no turning back. Pray her spirit does not choose revenge." Chisholm staggered out of the shrine, her legs weak. The forest seemed louder than before, crickets shrieked, leaves rustled though no wind blew. On her way home, she thought she saw a figure in white following her. When she turned, it vanished. By the time she reached her gate, her heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Days later, the younger twin, Somodina, refused to eat. When Chisholm asked why, the boy whispered, "Mama said not to trust you. She said you made her sleep forever." Chisholm slapped him in panic, but the boy only cried harder, repeating, "Mama said, Mama said." The elder twin, Chijubem, watched silently, his eyes too old for his young face. That night, Obinna told Chisholm he had dreamed of his late wife. "She told me not to let go of her children," he said. His voice was trembling, unsure. Chisholm faked a smile, but her insides churned. Everywhere she turned, Amora's presence was there. In the children's words. In her husband's dreams. Even in her own shadow. The house grew unbearable. Plates shattered in the kitchen at night without anyone touching them. Doors opened on their own. Once, Chisholm woke to find all the family pictures on the wall turned upside down. She screamed until neighbors rushed in, but when they entered, everything was normal again. They exchanged worried glances. Obinna's health began to fail. He grew pale and tired, missing work often. The twins grew restless, always speaking of their mother's visits at night. Chisholm tried to silence them, but their innocence betrayed her. Slowly, neighbors started avoiding her. Whispers spread, "This marriage is cursed." One afternoon, while dressing for church, Chisholm glanced at the mirror and froze. The reflection staring back at her was not her face. It was Amora's. Same eyes. Same smile. But behind the smile was accusation, sharp as a knife. The reflection whispered without moving its lips,
"You know this ring belongs to me."
Chisholm screamed and smashed the mirror, but the shards on the ground still showed Amora's face, dozens of tiny versions all laughing. From that day, Chisholm avoided mirrors. But no matter how she ran, every surface that reflected light, a window, a glass of water, even Obinna's eyes, seemed to carry her sister's shadow. Their mother, Meman Keiru, began to notice the tension. She called Chisholm aside one day. "My daughter, your sister's grave is not at peace. Every night I dream of her crying. Tell me the truth, what did you do?" Chisholm's throat tightened. She shook her head violently. "Mama, I did nothing. Stop accusing me." But Meman Keiru did not believe her. She started fasting on her own, praying for the family. At night, she sprinkled holy water around the compound. Each time she did, Chisholm's body itched and burned as though fire licked her skin. She stayed awake, watching her mother pray, hating every drop of water that touched the ground. In the crowded Owari market, a strange old woman stopped Chisholm. Her eyes were cloudy, her clothes ragged. She grabbed Chisholm's hand firmly. "Blood never hides," she muttered. "You took what was not yours. She is coming for you." Chisholm jerked her hand away, shouting, "Leave me alone, mad woman." But her heart pounded with terror. When she got home, she found a small black cloth tied with red thread on her doorstep, the same kind the forest priest had given her. She screamed and tore it apart, but inside was only ash. Her hands trembled as she realized, someone knew her secret. Obinna began to distance himself. He grew quiet, suspicious. He asked Chisholm sharp questions. "Why do the children say their mother comes at night? Why do I keep dreaming of her warning me? Why do you look guilty every time her name is mentioned?" Chisholm tried to act hurt, pretending to cry. "Do you not trust me?" she asked. But her tears did not convince him. Late that night, Obinna called his late wife's family to pray over the children. When they arrived, the atmosphere changed. The children clung to their grandmother and refused to go near Chisholm. Everyone noticed. The whispers grew louder. Chisholm's nights turned into torment. In her dreams, she walked barefoot on burning coals while Amora laughed softly behind her. "You wanted my life," her sister's voice echoed. "So carry my pain too." Every morning, Chisholm woke drenched in sweat, her feet blistered as if truly burned. She tried to pray, but her mouth grew heavy, her tongue tied. Words would not come out. It was as though heaven itself had locked her out. Alone, trembling, she realized her soul no longer belonged to God, it belonged to the forest spirits. One Sunday morning, the twins refused to follow Chisholm to church. Somodina clung to his grandmother, shouting, "Mama said she doesn't belong in the house of God." The entire compound heard it. Chisholm's face burned with shame as neighbors turned their eyes away. Obinna stood silently, his fists tight, saying nothing. But in his silence, Chisholm saw the cracks of trust breaking wide open. Later that night, the elder twin, Chijubem, crept to her bedside. His voice was calm but chilling. "Auntie, Mama says you will join her soon. She says she forgives you, but the spirits do not." The boy walked away before she could reply. Chisholm sat frozen, her heart pounding like a drum. By now, the whole neighborhood whispered about Chisholm. Some said she killed her sister. Others claimed she used charms to marry Obinna. Children taunted her in the street, calling her the replacement wife. The respect she once enjoyed had turned to quiet suspicion. One evening, as she fetched water, two women passing by said loudly, "Even if a tree is cut, the stump still shows where it once stood." Chisholm knew the words were aimed at her. Rage filled her, but also fear. The life she stole was slipping through her hands, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Desperate, Chisholm returned to the forest priest, begging for a way out. But this time, the man looked older, weaker, and strangely afraid. He refused her offering. "The spirits say your time is near. I cannot help you. I dare not touch what is already claimed." Chisholm fell to her knees, screaming and pulling at his feet, but he pushed her away. "You gave them your soul willingly. Now they want the rest. Leave before they take me too." Terrified, she stumbled back into the forest, realizing that even the one who bound her to darkness had abandoned her. Obinna no longer looked at her the same way. At night, he turned his back, clutching his pillow tightly. He had stopped calling her by name. The children avoided her, sneaking into their grandmother's bed at night. Slowly, the house she fought for had rejected her. One evening, Obinna said quietly, "Sometimes I feel my wife never left. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel her watching me. And when I open them, it is you I see, but not her. Tell me, Chisholm, who are you really?" His words struck her like thunder. For the first time, she feared Obinna might discover the truth. That night, Chisholm dreamed of her own funeral. She lay in a coffin, dressed in white lace, while mourners wailed. Her mother stood by the coffin, shaking her head and saying, "I lost 2 daughters instead of 1. Suddenly, Amora appeared, radiant, holding the hands of the twins. She looked at Chisholm and whispered, "Now you know how it feels to be replaced." Chisholm woke screaming, drenched in sweat. The neighbors banged on the door, shouting, "What is happening?" But she could not explain. She sat on the floor, rocking herself, whispering, "It's just a dream, just a dream." Yet deep down, she knew it was a prophecy. Maman Keiru finally confronted her. "Chisholm, I raised you better than this. I don't know what you did, but I know your sister cries every night. Return what you took, before it consumes you." Tears filled her mother's eyes, but Chisholm hardened her face. "Mama, stop accusing me. You always loved her more." The old woman wept bitterly. "Then may the God of truth judge between you and your sister. If you are innocent, may you live long. But if you are guilty, may you never see peace." From that night, Chisholm's torment doubled. Shadows followed her even in daylight. Somodina, the younger twin, fell mysteriously sick. His body grew weak, his voice faint. Doctors could not explain it. At night, he cried, "Mama is calling me." Chisholm's heart stopped. She knew what it meant. Her sister was reclaiming her bloodline. In fear, she knelt at the boy's bedside, begging, "Don't leave. Please, forgive me." But the child only turned away, whispering, "You are not Mama. You can never be." The words pierced her deeper than any knife. One evening, Chisholm opened her drawer and found the wedding ring once more. This time, it was wet, as though pulled from a grave. When she touched it, the house shook violently. The twins screamed. Obinna rushed in, demanding, "What happened?" But Chisholm hid the ring under her wrapper. That night, she dreamed of Amora wearing the ring, her skin pale, her eyes blazing. "You wanted my husband. You wanted my children. You wanted my life." Now, you will get my death. Chisholm woke choking, clawing at her throat, as if invisible hands were squeezing her neck. The same ragged old woman from the market appeared again. She stood in front of Chisholm's gate, chanting softly. When Chisholm demanded she leave, the woman laughed. Do you think secrets stay buried? The earth vomits what it cannot keep. Your sister's spirit walks in this house every night. The neighbors gathered, listening. Obinna came out, staring at Chisholm with wide eyes. What is she saying? He asked. Chisholm shook her head violently, denying everything. But inside, her stomach turned to water. She knew the woman was speaking the truth. Obinna grew restless. He searched through Chisholm's belongings, hoping to find answers. One night, he discovered the black cloth of ashes hidden under her bed, the remnants of the ritual. His face went pale. He remembered the ring, the dreams, the children's words. Slowly, everything made sense. When Chisholm returned, he held it up with shaking hands. What is this? He demanded. Chisholm fell to her knees, sobbing. I just wanted your love. I just wanted her life. I didn't mean for her to die. The confession slipped out before she could stop it. Obinna staggered back, horrified. The confession spread quickly. Mimon Keru wailed in grief, cursing the day Chisholm was born. The children refused to go near her. Neighbors spat on the ground when she passed. Obinna moved into another room, locking the door against her. Chisholm became a stranger in the house she once envied. At night, the whispers grew louder. Sometimes they sounded like Amora's laughter, other times like 1,000 voices chanting her name. Chisholm pressed her hands to her ears, but the whispers crawled inside her skull, echoing endlessly. One night, she felt a hand stroke her hair as she slept. She turned, expecting Obinna. But the bed was empty. Slowly, she looked up. At the corner of the room, a pale figure stood. Amora. Her eyes were calm, her voice like a cold wind. Sister, you gave me away. Now, I have come to take you. Chisholm screamed, stumbling out of bed. She lit a candle, but the flame flickered and died instantly. When she looked again, the figure was gone, but the air still smelled of earth and ashes. Chisholm ran to the church, collapsing at the altar. She cried, begged, tore at her clothes. God, forgive me. Please, save me. But the pastor, who had been praying late, shook his head. Confession without repentance is mockery. You sowed blood, and now blood cries against you. Terrified, she confessed her sins before the small congregation that gathered. But instead of mercy, she saw only fear and disgust in their eyes. Even the church seemed unwilling to shield her from the storm that was coming. That night, thunder shook the skies. Rain poured like judgment. The children clung to their grandmother while Obinna prayed loudly in the next room. Chisholm lay alone, trembling. Suddenly, the ring appeared again on her pillow, wet with mud. She tried to throw it away, but it stuck to her palm like glue. The room grew cold. A whisper filled the air, time is up. Slowly, her body stiffened. Her eyes rolled back. Neighbors later said they heard her screaming, but when they entered, she was lying still, her hand frozen around the ring. By dawn, Chisholm was gone. The doctors could not explain it. Her face looked peaceful, but her hand was blackened, as though burned from within. Mimon Keru wept bitterly, holding the twins close. This is what envy does, she cried. It destroys not just one life, but generations. Obinna buried Chisholm beside her sister, but the grave refused to stay quiet. At night, some swore they heard two women weeping there. Others claimed they saw shadows walking between the graves, holding hands. And so the story spread. Never envy the life of your own blood, for what you steal may steal you in return. Envy is more dangerous than poverty. Betrayal is a seed that grows into poison. And when you give your soul to darkness, it always comes back for its price. If you want more African stories full of lessons and suspense, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss our next story.